Hey looters, Flutes here. Today I want to talk about something that has been requested by a few of you listeners, watchers, readers for a while, which is homebrew expanded spell lists for sorcerer subclasses that existed before the Tasha's Cauldron of Everything subclasses for sorcerers. Just had tons of spells and a lot of versatility swapping out those spells. Let's give some of that versatility and spell expansion to the old sorcerers from the Player's Handbook and Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Today on Flutes Loot. Before I get too far into the video, I want to remind returners and anyone who's new that there is an article to accompany this video. So if you want to document these ideas for homebrew expanded spell lists for sorcerer subclasses, you may do so by bookmarking the article. I'll have a link to that in the description and probably a pinned comment too, because some people prefer that. So first of all, what is an expanded spell list? It means when you pick a subclass, it gives you certain spells at certain levels that are just given for you. The sorcerer subclasses in Tasha's also come with a caveat that when you gain a sorcerer level, you can swap out any of their expanded spell lists, so you're not stuck with them, but there are some guidelines of what you can pick. With my method today, I'm going to be a little more strict than what Tasha's did, because Tasha's allowed you to pick from the sorcerer, warlock, and wizard spell lists, and from 2 schools of magic when you were swapping out those spells. Some other notes on my methodology is I prefer to give spells that are from Xanathar's Guide to Everything or the Player's Handbook or even Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, because players are more likely to have those. The spells from Fizban's Treasury of Dragons are not as likely to be held by players. That's more of a DM's book. A lot of players may buy that book and have those spells, but that's just my slight preference. Not a big deal. I also prefer to give the sorcerer subclasses spells that sorcerers don't already get. If there was like 2 or 3 spells that seem to fit the theme for the level, I'll probably go with 1 or 2 that are not already on sorcerer spell lists. And if those aren't the cup of tea of the player, they can swap them out, as I will explain later. And of course, I really want to try to stick to the theme of each sorcerer subclass to build upon their features for one thing, so that they have synergy with their features and their spells, and that they just fit the theme and the description that was given to that subclass. I believe you can flavor any subclass how you want, but it is nice to stick to at least the theme that is inherent to it, and then others can build upon it. And of course, this is homebrew. It can just be inspiration for you, and you can swap out anything you want. But part of a good homebrew is a good base, and so I'm hoping to give you a good base to build upon. So going in alphabetical order through the subclasses. First is the Divine Soul Sorcerer in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. If you want to swap these spells out at any point, I decided to open that up to the Cleric and Sorcerer spell list, which makes sense because this subclass already can choose from the Cleric spell list as its inherent spellcasting feature. And then when you swap, they must be from the schools of Evocation or Conjuration, which allows you to get a lot of the best spells from the Cleric spell list anyway, but doesn't just completely open you up to tons and tons of new Cleric spells, so you just always have the same spell list. And don't get confused when I go through these spells, because I'm going based on the Sorcerer level and not the spell level. I'll explain how that works for the Divine Soul Sorcerer, and then I won't be redundant in the rest just to save you time. Sorcerer level 1, or level 1 spells, we've got Command and Shield of Faith. Sorcerer level 3 for level 2 spells, Locate Object and Aid. Sorcerer level 5 for level 3 spells, Tongues and Revivify. Sorcerer level 7 for level 4 spells, Death Ward and Banishment. Sorcerer level 9 for level 5 spells, Commune and Summon Celestial. It's important to remember that this subclass will already learn a bonus spell based on its affinity to whatever kind of deity or higher power, and its alignment and morality. So I avoid placing them on this expanded spell list, as I think that's kind of separate, and you can probably gain them anyway. I don't have a lot of notes on this spell list. I think it's pretty straightforward in that it's supposed to offer utility that the sorcerer doesn't already get, that the cleric can give to it, and it's swappable to make it more versatile. Next up is the Draconic Bloodline Sorcerer, and my temptation with this one was to make a bunch of different elemental-based spell lists, but depending on what kind of bloodline you choose. But I decided to not do that and just give them a base expanded spell list that is just draconic based. You know, it has to do with fear effects, dragon's greed, flight, transformations, that sort of stuff. They can be swapped for only spells from the Sorcerer spell list, and they must be from the schools of Transmutation or Evocation. Sorcerer level 1, Cause Fear and Chromatic Orb. Sorcerer level 3, Alter Self and Dragon's Breath. Sorcerer level 5, Fear and Protection from Energy. Sorcerer level 7, Fire Shield and Leman's Secret Chest. Level 9, Bigby's Hand and Summon Draconic Spirit. With those last ones, Bigby's Hand could be flavored as a giant draconic claw instead of just a basic hand, so that's an easy one. Summon Draconic Spirit is from Fizban's, and so it's less likely that players are familiar with it, but it's just too spot on. I think, for this, so I had to put it on there. Leomund's Secret Chest I put on there because I think that allows you to have that draconic greed, and maybe your character is a bit of a hoarder because of their draconic bloodline. Dragon's Breath and Chromatic Orb allow you to get some elemental spells that are versatile depending on what kind of elemental affinity you might choose or lean towards. But you can also change it up too based on the monster you're fighting. Alter Self, because dragons can alter themselves to transform into humanoids and live humanish lives. Fear and Cause Fear are great because dragons are notorious for their ability to just frighten those in their presence. Next up is the Shadow Magic Sorcerer. These spells can be swapped out for necromancy and illusion spells from the Sorcerer or Warlock spell lists. Sorcerer level 1, Mage Armor and Silent Image. Honorable mentions / potential swaps include Arms of Hadar, False Life, Cause Fear, or Disguise Self. Sorcerer level 3, Misty Step and Mirror Image. And I highly recommend flavoring Mirror Image to be you become a shadowy form of yourself and all your images do the same. And Misty Step, instead of it being a Fey-like teleportation, maybe you do a kind of Shadow Sneak like the move from Pokemon. Sorcerer level 5, Animate Dead and Summon Shadow Spawn. Sorcerer level 7, Avard's Black Tentacles and Shadow of Moil. Sorcerer level 9, Negative Energy Flood and Pass Wall, with potential swaps, honorable mentions for Dance Macabre, Seeming, or Dream. I enjoyed putting Pass Wall there on the list because it's like you can create a shadow on a wall and then just walk through it, which admittedly could be a bit cartoonish, like a Looney Tune putting a hole on a wall with some paint and then the Roadrunner just runs through it, sort of thing. And it could also start to feel a little bit like Toon World from Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is admittedly a dark concept even though they were cartoons. So, by the way, that would be cool to do a Shadow Magic Sorcerer who's kind of based on cartoonish shadow magic. I don't know. That sounds original to me. And the other one that kind of sticks out that you might wonder about is Sorcerer level 1 getting Mage Armor. Like, why does a Shadow Magic Sorcerer get that? I like to think of it like a shadowy protection layer that goes on the character. And I think there are other spells that are similar, like I said, that you could swap out. But Mage Armor, I just thought it was a little bit more original than others might put on this sort of list, and it's still a good spell for a sorcerer. I also considered putting Mordenkainen's Faithful Hound on this spell list because of the Hound of Ill Omen feature that the Shadow Magic Sorcerer gets. It would allow you to summon more little pups to do your shadow bidding. Next one's interesting. It's Storm Sorcery Sorcerer. These spells can be swapped out for evocation or conjuration magic from the Sorcerer or Druid spell lists. The theme that I really latched onto is that this is kind of like a seafaring subclass as well as a stormy one. So I picture oceanic storms. Their features are also usually based on thunder and lightning and water. So I favored spells that use those. However, there are some ice spells that make great sense for this, and I'll give them honorable mention because you could do many different kinds of storms, and ice is a great option. After all, you go north enough, you're going to get ice storms at sea, right? Sorcerer level 1, Fog Cloud and Thunder Wave. Potential swap to Ice Knife. Sorcerer level 3, Shatter and Warding Wind. Potential swaps for Rhymes Binding Ice or Gust of Wind. Sorcerer level 5, Call Lightning and Wall of Water. You could always get Lightning Bolt if you prefer, but Call Lightning is original to Sorcerers. And Sleet Storm would also be a good choice if you wanted to swap to that. Sorcerer level 7, Summon Elemental and Control Water, with potential swaps for Storm Sphere, naturally, and Conjure Minor Elementals. Sorcerer level 9, Maelstrom and Destructive Wave, potential swaps for Control Winds, Conjure Elemental, or Cone of Cold. Now, I recognize that allowing the Druid spell list and Conjuration spells for swapping could turn the Storm Sorcerer into just a Conjure Animals Sorcerer, but that's fine. If they want to do that, the Sorcerer could have some fun with that and maybe make a lot of oceanic beasts, so that could be fun. Otherwise, the Druid spell list is full of elemental spells and nature spells that the Sorcerer doesn't always get, and so I think putting the Druid spell list as an available swap really helps out the Storm Sorcerer, which a lot of people find underwhelming as a subclass anyway. Last up is the Wild Magic Sorcerer, which is my least favorite sorcerer, honestly. I just don't like wild magic. I know a lot of people do, and so I'll still give it some love, give it my best. These spells can be swapped out for the School of Enchantment or Transmutation from the Sorcerer spell list. Sorcerer level 1, Bane and Chaos Bolt. Sorcerer level 3, Enlarge Reduce and Alter Self. Sorcerer level 3, Blink and Tiny Servant. Sorcerer level 7, Summon Elemental and Polymorph. Sorcerer level 9, Awaken and Animate Objects. Polymorph is obviously a standout here, but I think if you think of these spells not just as like, oh, are they chaotic like Chaos Bolt is, but more, can you flavor them as you don't properly cast a spell like other sorcerers do and it just kind of happens. And I like to think that turning someone into a beast, like turning them into a rabbit all of a sudden, would be a manifestation of your emotions through spell casting. Summon Elemental might have made you lift an eyebrow, but the description for Wild Magic says that you may have been altered by visiting planes of existence like the elemental planes. And so Wild Magic doesn't have to just be fey in nature. It could be elemental even. Blink is great because you can just kind of blink in and out of existence almost sporadically. There's chance involved with the spell. Perfect. Bringing objects to life, very Beauty and the Beast or Fantasia-like, with tiny servant or animate objects, I think is very on brand for the Wild Magic sorcerer. And anything else like polymorph that kind of like alters people or their form in some way, like Enlarge Reduce or Alter Self. Those are great. And then Bane just adds a little bit of bad luck to your enemies, let's say. It might also be cool to put Bless on this spell list instead of Chaos Bolt or Bane. Maybe swap one of those out because maybe you're also giving good luck to your allies. And then Awaken is a spell that kind of goes along with that same like altering, transmutation, random effects flavoring of the subclass. So Awaken, you can actually like bring something to life or give it a proper intelligence, which I think sounds pretty wild. So those are my Sorcerer subclass expanded spell lists. I hope that if you want to spice up your sorcerer a little bit, or you have a player, DMs, who need a little bit more for their sorcerer character, I hope these lists will give you some ideas. You don't have to give them a proper spell list like this either. You could just give them some rewards in-game that allows them to get new spells or ramps up their current spells. You can check out my article and video about enhanced spell components and how to reward spellcasters properly, if that sounds fun to you. Let me know what you think of these spell lists, and if you would swap any of them out. No judgment. I don't take it as criticism, because this is all homebrew and just what we think would be fun. So I'd like to hear if it's useful for you, or just what you think you would do in your situation. Bookmark FlutesLoot.com, subscribe to our channel, and like this video, please. And also, mosey on over to one of Opal, my wife's, videos, because we are a husband-wife duo on this channel, and we'd love to give you an experience with both of us, because I think between the two of us, we've got enough personality that you'll like and enough content that'll be useful to you. Subscribe on us so that you'll always know when we're up to something, because scrying is the best way to keep on those of interest to you. So again, I'm Flutes saying have a good weekend and a wonderful adventure this weekend, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.